Evening folks, Darren Edwards here at Audi Quattro Restoration Group, and I just want to do a short video regarding the Fuba electric antenna and some important things that you should know really if your Quattro is still equipped with a Fuba automatic antenna. Firstly, mine failed big time, and I came on one day and the antenna was sticking up in the air, and I thought that's a bit strange because the radio isn't turned on. So I immediately opened up the car, went to the antenna. I could smell burning plastic, not a good sign, and the body of it was hot, and I disconnected the power as quick as I could. And it turns out, this is a common problem apparently, that the aerial decided to send itself up because of a failed control board. And I've took the antenna apart, managed to fix all of the issues myself, luckily. But I just want to very quickly explain really about the process involved in repairing one if you need to do the same, because it can get expensive if you require specialist help to get it fixed. But there is a way around it yourself, and I'm just going to show you very quickly how I fixed mine. The first thing was the damage that was caused by the antenna going up and sticking. The motor stayed on instead of cutting off after a short period of time. The damage it did was it destroyed the old motor. It burnt the winding out inside, and this is part of the old motor, and it still smells horrible now. But I stripped the motor down to have a look at it inside, thinking that maybe I could get it rewound or something like that. And it turns out that the motor is not remarkable. You can get them on eBay. It's a 12-volt motor, and I got one on eBay. The only thing about it is there's a special worm gear drive on the end of the motor, and that has to be sweated off. You can, if you buy a replacement motor off eBay, they're about £7. You can basically warm that up with a blowtorch gently and drift it off, and then drift it onto the new motor like I've just done here. So that was the motor replaced, because it cooked my motor completely. It knackered the windings on it. So I replaced that motor at a very reasonable £7. Sweated off the worm gear, worm drive, put it on this one, just drifted it on gently. And then the other thing that failed on it, which caused the initial issue, was the control board. And it's not that complicated really, to be honest. There's a relay that sends the antenna up, there's a relay that sends the antenna down, and these connections on here, on the right hand side, when the two of them are live, it sends the antenna up, and then when just this outside one is live, it puts the antenna back down. And that's all controlled. This middle cable here comes from your stereo, and when you turn your stereo on, it energizes that one, because this one is energized the whole time. So when they're both energized, up goes the antenna, and then it shuts off after a short time, controlled by the electronics. But I had a look at it, and over time I realized that it was inadvertently just sending, opening the relay and sending the antenna up, or would do if it connected, if the motor was connected. And I realized that it's these two transistors. They were a bit leaky, and I swapped them both out, and I've had the control board on soak test for a couple of days, and it's behaved itself. So on my occasion, it was just literally these little transistors that were a bit leaky. Well, the one was. I changed them both anyway, just to be on the safe side, and it's all working fine now. So rather than changing the whole board, I just changed a couple of transistors, and easy enough job. They've only got standard solder-on connectors on the legs, so it's nothing difficult about it. So I did that, and as I say, I replaced the motor as well, so that was done as well. And then the other thing was some damage to the carrier where the motor sits. Now this is the inside of the Fuba that carries the control board and the motor, and it had melted because the motor had got hot and was trying to move. The torque of the motor had twisted it in its mounting and melted. The heat of the motor had melted the top of the casing. So I put a little little whatever you call it, collet or whatever you want to call it in there from one of my radio control cars, but I didn't think that was strong enough really to hold the motor once it was back in. It was all squared up and everything. So what I did was I just made a nifty little metal plate, and this metal plate basically it sits inside of there, and because the pins that hold the motor on are located through that, it prevents any torque of the motor from trying to twist the motor in the bracket that holds it. So it basically takes the strain off that plastic, which is in a little bit of a poor state now on the top. The bottom's okay, as you can see, but the top is in a bit of a state. So I just made this nifty little plate that just sits like that, and then the motor screws go through it, and it all connects lovely. There's a gear this side that I've removed. The gear basically sits on the top like that, and I just dropped it. Hang on a second, sorry. And it sits there like that and drives through to the other side, and then the motor worm goes against this. And if you square the motor up to that and then make your metal plate, mark the holes and make the metal plate, the motor will sit in there nicely and drive the gear, and that's all it's there to do. So I'll get it back together, this sub-assembly, and then I'll show you it all completed, and then the next video that I post, I will show the whole antenna back together and on the car, and what you need to do to prevent this happening. If your Fuba is happy at the moment, great, but you're going to need to stick an inline fuse on the supply side, so that if it does go doolally, then at least it won't melt everything. It might send your antenna up, but when the motor draws more current than it should do, it'll just blow the fuse, and it will protect your motor mount plate. And the motor won't get hot and melt everything, so it will just blow the fuse, and that'll be the supply cut to it, and your area will just be stuck up. But the only expense you'll have then is changing a couple of transistors on the control plate. So I shall just pause this video for a second and then put this sub-assembly together and just show you what we have.